here in Paris, or as they say, Paris. We had a very busy day today running around. We were on the Champs-Élysées. And there was one particular store that got me going. We had a conversation earlier. I like to keep him on his toes. He likes to keep me on my toes. But you talked about your first time going into Louis Vuitton on Champs-Élysées.
Ouais.
So this is what, some of the things you were talking about, this is what I'm going to surprise him with during our vlog.
Okay.
Okay, so I want you to talk about this because I want to actually talk about modest fashion. Certain things that you picked up in there, but you said some things, and I want to extract that from you as well as just bounce off a conversation about modest fashion, what we see here in Paris, which is France is probably known more for women's fashion, Italy probably known more for men's fashion. The British are known probably more for men's fashion, men's suiting. So now that we're here, women's fashion, modest fashion, going into Louis Vuitton, on the Champs-Élysées, what were the things that you picked up and saw? And then if you want to start our conversation, or actually rehash our conversation that we had earlier today about modest fashion, we're just not going to capture it on camera, but he didn't know that we were going to talk about it. But we've been talking about it, so it should be fresh.
Interestingly, they sold books in the store, right? You think, like, so what? They had like fashion books on Alexander McQueen, Christian Dior, all sorts of books.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
That they have other fashion brands, icons in there, right? Because you think it would be only Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, because the first thing I thought was like, do they have a connection with Louis Vuitton? Like, how does that work? And it's like, they were just showing what they considered to be good fashion. And apart from the obvious things like, things that you see in Paris, photographs and stuff, they had like fashion books from essentially competitors. But then there's this one book that talks about, I think it was like 28 ways to tie a headscarf.
Yeah. So this is what when he mentioned this, I said, ooh, I got the vlog idea, because we were still not sure. Oh, anyway, go ahead.
So it's like different ways that, like, ranging from like hijab to turban to like, I don't know, like 50s, open top race car style. But I thought that was smart because it's a soft way of selling to tell people, like, this is how you can wear a product. Why scarves? Because, like, we're talking about modest fashion, and there were a lot of Muslims, headscarf wearing Muslims, that were in the Louis Vuitton store. And I was like, well, you're basically showing them how they can wear a scarf and different ways to try, which is always a good sales technique, right? By saying, here are all of the different, breakfast cereals. Here are the serving suggestions, not just breakfast cereal, but like, you can make like chocolate snack bars, you can like crunch up cornflakes and make them into like batter for fried chicken.
Yeah.
And, you're just trying to increase consumption. So they had a book that was kind of showing people that. Connected to modest fashion, what I thought was interesting was the fact that there were a lot of Muslims in the store buying scarves, handbags, shoes, sunglasses, all sorts of accessories. And I think accessories are important in the whole identity struggle. I say struggle because, like, we've spoken about post 9/11, Islamophobia, all that kind of stuff. And it struck me that, like, when you think about modest fashion, there are a lot of stories or narratives or pictures where they're saying, we don't fit in, or you don't listen to us, so we've developed our own thing, and this is how we like to be. And you could argue that this is like the alternative antidote, which is basically like, well, you want to fit in and you can fit in, and so if you are being stereotyped as being someone who is like on the outside, possibly they might assume that, like, you're uneducated as a woman, and education goes hand in hand with money and wealth and things like that. There's research to show that a lot of people from minority groups clearly can signal that they're not part of that stereotypical negative perception by wearing and using and consuming luxury items, right? The car, the handbag, scarf, like the watch, jewelry, all those sorts of things. And so I thought to myself, wow, I saw like lots of people like purchasing scarves, handbags, or people treating each other. And it seemed to be a good way to basically say, like, well, whatever you can produce, your finest items, I can buy them in Paris. I can go to Paris, I can go shopping like you can, and I can buy bags like you can, and I can wear them, and I can buy several of these items. So then it made me think, so what's the role of modest fashion then? If people are accessorizing and they're willing to spend a lot of money on accessories, then it means that if you wanted to grow like fashion, like how do you develop a luxury modest fashion brand? Because people are sinking their money into accessories. They're not sinking them into the clothes in the modest fashion scene. Or if they are buying clothes, then you're also buying, like you go to Dior, you go to like Armani, you go to Gucci, Givenchy, and you see the same people purchasing statement items which are effectively covering them, right? They're spending a lot of money on a lot of cloth, which is covering most of the body, and each of them is sending out that signal. And I thought that was interesting, because then I thought, well, how do you build a brand in the modest fashion scene? Or how do you build a luxury brand? Now, you know, one of the things that Louis Vuitton does is, like, you know, they give you an experience, right? And they limit the number of items that you can purchase from them.
I think I shared it with you that Yahoo, I don't know if it was a survey or research, where they looked at all of the American women and they basically compared Muslim women, 250 Muslim women, 500, I forgot the sample group, were asked about how they felt about themselves, how they dressed, how they appeared. And in comparison to the average American woman, all of them felt more beautiful than the average American woman. All of them felt better dressed, more fashionable than the average American woman. And we talked about this, and you found some problematic, I had some problem, but you being the researcher, and you understanding testing and measurement and bias, and it was very interesting because Islamophobia, it's really attack on the outer.
Yeah.
It's not attack on your beliefs, and yeah, you have those who want to attack the different things that the normal trolls, bullies want to talk about, but it's mainly, if I come across you, I see you with a scarf on your head, I see you with a beard, I see you with that little big yarmulke.
Or different colored skin.
Exactly.
Not that Islam is like limited to a particular skin type, but the chances are, if you are of a certain skin color and you're not wearing these objects that affiliate you with a religion, then people are going to assume that you are from a particular group, right?
So we talked about this research, and go ahead and bring some of those ideas if you remember. If you don't.
So I'd love to see like what questions were being asked. I mean, that's the giveaway, because if you ask somebody direct questions like, how do you feel? I feel great, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's like, congratulations, this is a survey that is wanting to understand people's identity and how you feel. So if anyone sniffs that there's an agenda, they want to try and basically buck that agenda, right?
Yeah. So you're asking a Muslim girl. Exactly. We don't know what the title of the survey was, the research was. So if American Muslim women are thinking to themselves, oh, this is another way to make us look liberated, to paint us or make us look favorable under good lighting and good circumstances, and just make us overall seem like a better group and we're not the enemy. Yes, I feel pretty. Yes, I am fashionable. Yes, I feel great. How do you feel today? Fantastic.
I mean, if we, I want to be sensitive about people misreading what we're trying to say, but then
because it could have also been written well, the testing and the measurement, it could have been.
But then it's kind of like, a lot of my favorite musicians all committed suicide.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so you see a rock star, you see a frontman, and they say that they feel fine and they're great and they're kind of rocking the stage, but something obviously isn't right? Or you see, these people on Instagram that have spent tens of thousands of dollars putting forward this idyllic life, and then obviously things aren't right because they're in debt.
Yeah, because so what was not funny, but what was very intriguing about the research is that basically all American Muslim women as a whole, outwardly, and I guess inwardly, because they were asking, how do you feel about yourself? Do you feel pretty? It just was above average, or in comparison to the typical average American woman.
Which is, so I would say as a researcher, first reading, that is an interesting statistic.
What do you mean by interesting?
Because it's interesting because you're showing a difference in perception between two groups of people. The challenge then is to see, well, why does that gap occur? and what's driving it. And that's where people could debate as to whether it's like for this reason or that reason. I mean, the good example is like, you know, lots of studies would say that African Americans have a disproportionate amount of luxury items in their wardrobe, and they would say, oh, that's because, and a lot of the becauses were kind of negative. They're just consumers. They don't know how to spend
Low
that.
self-esteem.
Right, stuff like that. But then there are other surveys that have said actually it's not about them having low self-esteem. They wanted to project a certain image to counteract negative stereotypes of them being from a low socioeconomic group, especially in, you know, if you're in a position of management, and if you're the boss and you're an African American or you're Hispanic, and people might not take you seriously unless, well, if they see the Rolex on your wrist, then they think, okay, he must be a boss. I mean, it sounds really crass and basic, but there's a lot of human biology that goes into these kind of micro tells or these split-second decisions. Go on.
First, I want to just put a warning out there. We are not trying to mansplain anything, because when you think modest fashion, you think women's fashion.
Right.
Amongst Muslim women globally.
Correct.
So when we're talking about modest fashion, to be completely frank, we are talking about women's fashion that happen to be worn by practicing Muslim women. So we're not trying to mansplain. Definitely, we are not the ones who wear the actual clothing, but we're very, very intimate in regard to the information and talking to those practitioners, the entrepreneurs, the companies involved in this space, as well as speaking to people who have been models, the different companies that want to enter this space. So yeah, we don't want to mansplain and say that we know it all and like, look at two guys talking about it and they're not even women. So that, just wanted to throw that out there. So we're completely open to refutation, rebuttals, and you guys don't understand because you're not women. Very true. So there are many women, internationally Muslim women who are trying to start their brands. And as someone who is native to the industry of apparel, fashion, accessories, furnishings, when you're dealing with clothing and minimum order quantities, MOQs, if you're in the space, lead times, where you're going to have it manufactured, I will tell you one thing now, and I think that this has been a problem and been very challenging to any and every entrepreneur. Number one, to create a luxury brand, just to create a brand, but especially clothing, which is super, super psychographic, right?
Yeah.
You've got to sink a lot of money. A lot of money. Think about this. You have a blue shirt, and you're going to get it in a small, right? You have to get it in blue, but you want stripes. So that's a blue stripe in a small, and you got to make 5,000 of those because the factory will not accept anything lower than 5,000. That's just a small in blue with stripes. What about blue with polka dots? What blue with flowers? What with blue V-neck, crew neck, collar? When you start adding the amount that will be needed to create just a regular clothing brand, it's a lot. So when I see a lot of the modest fashion brands come, they have a good amount, 10, 20 items, but when you're comparing yourself nowadays to fast fashion, and they're just killing it, especially when women are trying to hashtag OOTD, outfit of the day, you have to wear a lot of different outfits, and it can be very costly. So you also have to buy a lot and then sell low because you're competing with H&M, Zara.
So what if you get, I mean, the thing about luxury is, what if you go the other way? So previously luxury was synonymous with class, and it's been decoupled, and scarcity, but it's not scarcity anymore in the sense that it used to be, right? In terms of like, this is a like, if you think about some fragrances, like, you know, amber coming from the whale, right, or musk coming from the deer or something. Like, It's this idea that you're creating, whichever sector you go in, but if we stick with clothing, the fabric may not be, it's a luxury item, but it may not be made of something which is like really, you know, really scarce, right? It may not be silk, it could be like a man-made fabric, a fiber or something like that, right? Which actually is quite easy to produce, but it's the story and the narrative around it that then gives it this new lease of life, right? I mean, even like, was it Prada at the minute? People are wondering why, you know, the banana shirt is going for $1,700. it's like, do you like it?
It's Prada. It doesn't matter if I like it or not because you wear it because it
It's
says
a
Prada.
shirt with bananas on it.
Yeah.
Really.
And I think, I don't know if I even answered your question because building, let me take a step back. Because I said, you answered, your question was building a luxury modest fashion brand. Okay, that's even more problematic. When I was answering your question, it was just building a regular modest fashion brand. And my problem is when you got to go heads up with Mango, TK Maxx, because these women are buying these items just to take a photo, and some of them go and return it. That's just a reality.
Yeah.
That's what we've had to do. People buy it, take photos, do a photo shoot, and return it. So if you have people who are trying to become influencers, trying to get their following on YouTube, on Instagram, and trying to make it just in whatever they're trying to do with modest fashion, they have to wear, they have to look this. As an entrepreneur trying to create a company in that space, you gotta sink a lot of money. And I don't think, if you think about Ralph Lauren, which is the most successful clothing brand in the world, they almost went bankrupt twice.
Yeah.
They're owned by private equity, I believe now. So you have women who are, I'm gonna start a brand, and then you're trying to, if you're in America, there's not that many Muslims there compared to over here on this side of the world. And then, as one VC firm always asks, why now?
Yeah.
So if you say, oh, I want to create a modest fashion line, they would ask, why now? Haven't they solved that in Egypt, in Malaysia? Haven't they been solving it for the past 1,400 years in Saudi Arabia, Morocco? So what are you bringing to Belgium, France, England, Netherlands, also with the rise in Islamophobia in America and all over the, all these Western nations? What are you bringing that's going to be so different from the past 1,400 years that's going to make people want to buy when it's already been out in the market? And what people have been doing, right, is just going to Zara and H&M and putting pieces together.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and people might disagree with me. I don't think if you want to build it sounds paradoxical, but listen to me. If you want to build a modest fashion brand, don't call yourself a modest fashion brand. Create a brand. If people associate you with modest fashion or identify, or it sounds like you're in that space, fine, but create a brand.
But that's hard.
And don't necessarily.
But that's hard.
Don't necessarily call yourself. You don't. You think, okay, let me call it Aisha or Khadija or Al-Barak or something like that. Think a little bit deeper and create a brand. And the reason I say that is that a brand is going to take several years to develop, right?
But so you know why you want to call yourself a modest fashion brand?
Because you want to ride that wave of media attention.
Yeah, and exactly. You want to be in the PR loop, and you want to become a fast mover and rise the ranks in a smaller pool of participants. Because once you go into once you're going up against Prada, D&G, Calvin Klein, Michael Kors, you're going to be eaten up. That's why many go I'm going to be a modest fashion line, but then you're only catering to people.
But so this is the thing. So you might get some headlines like this year or the next year, like it's Ramadan or like there's a conference coming up, and then you're one of the brands that gets name dropped. Regardless of whether it's modest fashion or any other company, it's very difficult to track that journey that a consumer reads your name, Googles, and then purchases your item or goes to your store. It's great PR. It might work if you want to get investors or something, but they would want to see more track record. They want to see your books, balance, stuff like that. But there's an assumption that if I get mentioned on television or in a magazine, then I'm just going to sell loads of stuff. It will sell itself. Or even if you yourself, as you as the founder, you get your photograph, celebrity status or whatever it is, you're an entrepreneur. That doesn't necessarily translate to sales or to brand building. And I think that's the challenge, because if we go back to luxury, if you want to build a luxury brand, you have to develop this experience, right? That effectively means that you have to control your image, but you have to get people to basically have, touch your items, visit, go to your store, which is why Louis Vuitton was interesting, because they serve refreshments. Like, do you want a drink? Take a seat. Like, hang out, sit on the couch.
Yeah, they're giving you perfumes, colognes, giving you
samples,
bags,
testers.
samples.
Look, when you're charging that much for those items, you can afford to reinvest that back into your business. Like,
What if you're not trying to create a luxury brand? You just want to create a modest fashion brand. So you're saying, first off, don't even call it modest fashion.
Okay, definitely brand build, because even if you don't want to go into the luxury space, if you can create a brand that allows you to charge more, then you have more money that you could put back into the business to strengthen that whole experience. So there's no reason why you have to be Louis Vuitton to give away refreshments in your store, right? But the whole hook is that people have to go into the store. Now, the challenge is if you build a new brand, and we've all been there, right? I've sold T-shirts online and stuff, which is great because your business is always open. But you know that you'll have a more meaningful relationship if someone gets to touch the item or go into the store. So if you set up a company and no one can actually go into your store, it becomes difficult, right? It's that transition from, like, let's assume that most people develop a collection and they sell it online. You use Instagram, you go through social media, and you get a bit of traction. Then the next step is, do I then jump into having a store, or how do people or do I do expos? There could be some Muslim expo or lifestyle show or something. It's really difficult because you do have to sink a lot of money, and it's going to take time.
And that's what I feel is the major problem. So if you don't have a brick and mortar, right, you just have a click and mortar.
Yeah.
How do you build that experience? So you hire influencers, people have lots, and then we can do a whole other vlog on just why there's an issue with social influencers and media influencers and all these.
Where it can possibly work is when you see people doing their hauls on YouTube and they purchased an item and they unwrap it in front of an audience. That can work, but then it goes.
But then it's now entering a phase of social influencers where when they do something like that, because we've been trained, these guys are influencers. They're getting paid for this.
Yeah, but on the other side, I think the important thing about branding is if you look at these top brands, it's the item of clothing. It's the label, it's the tags, it's the bags, it's the tissue paper.
Which is a lot of money.
It's all of those things. I mean, look, he actually gave me one of his ties. Right? Several years after we'd known each other, of course. Right? But when I opened the box, there's a box, there's tissue paper, and I kept all of it, because I like those things. I like packaging, and I carefully unwrapped it. You thought about those things, and that's to me what says, okay, this is a brand as opposed to just a tie. Right?
Yeah.
So a top tip would be think about the packaging in which you put your items. If it's not clothes and it would say cosmetics, you get this great moisturizer, and then you get a tub, and the tub looks like it's come from a drugstore or a chemist or something, then automatically you've rendered it like medication, as opposed to kind of this lifestyle cosmetic choice. So thinking about the containers and the vessels in which you put things is really important. I think it's underestimated. But then if you're going to have your own container, obviously that costs more money because you have to design something that's unique and doesn't look like something else, right?
Yeah. To me, I look at the modest fashion space and I see how many have tried and have failed. A lot of them are not going to have stores, so you don't get the full experience. You're going to be online, so you're purchasing online. So the experience online, as well as receiving it, so even the package, the box, it costs a lot of money. If you're dealing with so many different SKUs, I just feel you have Modanisa in Turkey, but I don't even know how they're doing currently. They could be doing well, but from all the different companies that I've been coming across, you've got to pour a lot of money into this. And now with the competition, and I feel that that's the most difficult part, is the competition. And that women for the past 15, 20 years, or when this modest fashion craze started, they've already been doing it by, I'm just going to go to TK Maxx, TJ Maxx in America. I'm going to go to Marshalls. I'm going to go to H&M. I'm going to go to Zara. I'm going to go Forever 21, Forever 18, whatever.
Yeah.
And put all my pieces together. But you're now thinking, oh, I'm going to create a store for us. So you've got to replicate what H&M has done.
The other thing,
and that is very, very difficult.
I mean, I think the other development has been people's taste and thirst for colors.
Yeah.
So like even like
So even the range now.
yeah, because the thing is like when I thought about my book cover for halal branding, like I actually spent a long time thinking about the two colors that I was going to use, how they complement each other, and so if you then think about clothing, I mean look, I mean even this like Adidas Originals, this is like a purple. They've got like any number of colors.
Yeah.
I've got more than one tracksuit top in different colors, and modest fashion, I mean, it then becomes tough because it's like, you know, you want a purple item and then you think, okay, purple's going to look good with forest green. So I would like another, but then.
And here you are, the entrepreneur, going, man, I just got blue, black, and green.
Right.
I don't have purple. I don't have pink.
Yeah.
I don't have polka dots. I don't.
Yeah.
So.
Or you do like, you know, like hijabs is another one, right? Like if you think about, like, you know, I remember like you go to the UAE, you go to Saudi, and they'll have like drawers and drawers of different hijabs. But the thing is, that's a hijab store, and they've been around for years. But now if you're wanting to create a look and a brand, which is like this whole modest fashion thing, this is our look, our style guide, that's a lot of hijabs and a lot of colors, because it's not just pink, it's like now if you look on like style guides for pink, there's like dirty pink, there's dusty pink, there's like hot pink, there's like, and all of them are then being paired together. That's a lot of product. And then once you've got that look, then you're gonna like 3 months later have to redo the look.
And then also with these different brands, typically they're designers, typically the entrepreneur, the one who leads the brand, is native to the industry. So if you, not to say that you're from someone on the outside, you might do it in t-shirt, because I've seen it in t-shirt, because t-shirt super easy to do, very difficult to succeed in. But a lot of these different fashion brands, they're typically led by a designer who did their time in some fashion house. If you think about the Tom Ford, all of them, they were part of some group, some fashion house established, and then going out and creating their own, because they've had the brand association with luxury. So when you have people saying, oh, I want to create my own line, and then they come out with their own products, and they're thinking probably more function, or it's just another product that's replaced. If you yourself, for example, are not a fashion icon, you could talk about, for example, when we were at Windsor and talking about Kylie Jenner, how her statistics, her numbers are phenomenal. And someone said, well, that's because she's an influencer and because she's a celebrity, and that's why she's won, and that's why she's a billionaire. No. How many successful people have failed?
So why didn't Beyonce's jeans like take off, basically? Like, you know.
For Kanye's.
Yeah.
Kanye's pastel, it failed. If you think of all these different lines of clothing that have failed, different restaurants by people, by different celebrities that have failed, you would think that the stardom, it helps, but even that. So my point is that when you're dealing with fashion, it's so mental. The reason why you're wearing Adidas, if it was a regular plain, I don't know if you'd be wearing a regular purple tracksuit. I don't know if you would be. I don't know if it's the Adidas logo and what it stands for, especially over here in Europe, because Adidas is much more heavy in Europe than it is in America.
I would.
Would what?
I would if it was unbranded, but I would be a lot more scrutinous. I mean, like, it's like, okay, the stripes are the same color as the fabric, so it's like, it's not loud. It's Adidas, but it's not.
It's not loud. It's purple.
But I mean, in terms of the branding, I mean, the three stripes gives it away, but it's not like dripped in a massive logo. That's what I mean. So it's like, it's branded, but it's not, like some people like loud branding, right?
Yeah.
If it was unbranded, then I think I would be more scrutinous on the color. Is it exactly the right color? What's the quality like? Is the cut right? Whereas I know that if it's Adidas, I can just pick it off the shelf.
Yeah.
So that kind of journey towards purchase is a lot quicker, because it's like you've been around for years. They know how to cut patterns.
Yeah.
Athletes wear them. All sorts of people wear them. Okay, then I can take this off the shelf. Whereas the kind of the neuroses is that if it's unbranded, it's like, is it going to last? Is it good fabric? Is it going to wash well? You know, will the color stay? You know, and that's really what a brand can do. A brand can reassure someone that those things are okay. And then you want to get into a space, and then at one end of the spectrum, you've got like Louis Vuitton, where that logo on a scarf is great for some people. Like they'll buy that scarf because it's got a logo on it, and they'll feel fantastic, and they'll spend a lot of money. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got Adidas, where things actually, they have some very affordable items. Like when someone goes, look at you wearing it. Like, I'm buying a pair of Adidas trainers for like £30. You know, it's they've been able to do high end and low end, and now they can do colors. Like you can like design your own trainers. You can have your name on trainers. So that if you think about what consumers are expecting now, like, so if I know that Adidas can allow me to pick colors, allow me to do color combinations, and allow me to put initials or my name, or even have the trainers without the logo on them, and send them to me in a reasonable amount of time for not much extra. Ray-Ban sunglasses can do the same, like have your name on the side or whatever. It's that much more difficult than if you are a young entrepreneur or an independent wanting to go into the space. Yeah. Especially in modest fashion, where if you think culturally, you're coming from regions where people are used to personalization. So Adidas is actually learning from, you could argue, from those parts of the world. Like,
you go and buy your own fabric.
Right. So you look at the Gulf, and people wear
South Asia,
Pandoras and Thobes
North
and stuff.
Africa, West Africa.
They don't buy off the peg.
No.
So the challenge for modest fashion is in some of these cultures, like in the Gulf, people don't buy off the peg. You pick a design
off the rack, as we say in America.
Yeah. You say, I want this fabric, that style, and then they make it to your specifications. Go to Pakistan, go to India, Bangladesh. Everyone does that.
So that's we're talking logistics, right?
But also the fact that they're having to change behavioral perceptions, because modest fashion has been branded as being a religious dress code. But a lot of the items actually have their roots in cultural dress codes. I'm not saying that they're not religious, but if you're looking at the abaya or the thobe from the Gulf, the kandora, or you're looking at the shalwar kameez and stuff like that, there are things that people have been wearing for a long time, or even like Malaysian dress, and it's made bespoke.
But the thing about the Western American Muslims, the European Muslims, the women trying to create these fashion brands here, I feel it's just logistical nightmare, especially behavior modification is what you're talking about.
Basically, yeah.
And like I said, going back to the question, why now? That is asked by Sequoia Capital. Why now? It's been done for 1,400 years.
And it's complicated behavior as well, because the same individual, if it comes to something which originates from a particular region, like, so if there's an item which is like shalwar kameez or abaya or thobe, and it's culturally linked, and people know that it can be made, then they will aspire towards it being bespoke, and they will have different criteria than if they want to buy a tracksuit top. The same individual will go, well, I know that tracksuit tops aren't bespoke, so I will buy the one that fits, whether that's Nike, Adidas, Puma, and that's how I behave. But modest fashion at the minute is in a it's in a middle passage, or it's like, can you go luxury or can you go high street, or can you do you do bespoke or do you not? Do you customize? Do you do colors?
I don't even think it's there, man.
I
feel this is my little hack. If I was in the space, just taking from my history of I would focus on accessories, small pieces. Why? Because you're not going to get many returns. I know a lot of the women in the modest fashion space want to create the long shirts and the professional jackets because I'm going in for a job interview, or I'm going to be going to this university and I need to be dressed professionally, so I need these kinds of clothing requirements. But they already exist. I know you have to mix and match, but if you want to create...
Or people reach, the thing is that what you wear at a family gathering or with your friends is different. Like, if somebody is going for a job that's paying good money in a mainstream corporate firm, they might actually just let some of their requirements slide. By that, what I mean is normally I wouldn't wear a jacket that's so short, but I'm gonna take this jacket from this brand because I want to fit in, basically. There are too many. I can't have too many red lights, a headscarf and a tunic,
Yeah.
would push me over the edge. But a headscarf with a business suit that everyone else wears.
With a little blazer that is higher than what I typically wear.
Yeah.
So, like I said, what would be my hack would be to focus on accessories. Why? It's a one size fits all. You're not going to get many returns except for colors. Because I'm telling you, when you have to create shirts, just one shirt in one color in all the different sizes, you're stuck with 5,000 just of that one shirt. So all the money you got to put in. And that's the thing. I don't know if a lot of these women who, they may be designers, but they may not be business women.
So this is another thing, right? The Muslim world is diverse in terms of size as well. So one of my things is that when you look at a lot of the modest fashion shows, you don't see diversity in body size.
Yeah, but this is just for women globally.
Yeah, but if you look especially at
what are you trying to say? That what Muslim women are more sedentary?
If you look at the stats from the regions in which Muslims live.
But we're just focusing on the West. Oh, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But modest fashion covers the entire world. So if you look at some of the countries like in the Gulf and other places where there's high diabetes and stuff like that, then the average dress size is larger, but I don't necessarily see that reflected in the new brands that come out. And I get it, because some of them will say, but it's difficult because there's too many sizes, or they're actually just replicating what was happening on catwalks several years ago.
Yeah.
But you don't see many people from a variety of sizes or heights or stuff like that, which then means more designs, more money. It's just tougher.
I just feel in regards to this, probably wrap it up because it's been a long time. It's very, very capital intensive.
Yeah.
And you're having to modify behavior.
Yeah.
And you're having to tell people, basically, buy mine instead of going down the street and buying from H&M, buying from all these fast fashion outlets that are easy to get to, let alone their prices are just rock bottom. And they're turning out new pieces. Literally every month, it's just turnover, new look, and if you're concerned about your social media, your outfit of the day, new pictures, you can't be sinking so much money on one shirt. Because then what ends up happening, and we know this now, the research, where people are just going into debt because they want to have that social media image. How many people are just going into tons of debt so that they can look cool? And they look like they're living the life, but really, they're up to their eyeballs in debt. What do you see for the future? We'll wrap up here. For the future of modest fashion, where do you think people, entrepreneurs, women who want to get into this, men who want to get into this space, what do you think they should do? Which they should be on the lookout for? I gave my little hack of, I would try to get in with accessories, do well there, and start up so that you have already established a brand. What would you say?
I'd say the long game is we need more Muslims going and studying design. So rather than trying to replicate things from the outside, actually going to art school, learning pattern cutting, and actually just working mainstream, and then going wherever you want to go, just like Tom Ford, people like that. So we need more success stories coming from that route rather than the kind of, let's start something on our own and then try and take it mainstream. Start mainstream and then take a segue.
And I was going to make a point right now, but I think that once going back to my point of starting with accessories, then you can understand logistics, pricing, operations, margins better, financing. Then that slow growth with accessories then can turn into, okay, now I'm going to have a spring collection of clothing. And that's my thing. When you try to when you jump into the deep end and just try to provide clothing you're competing with the big dogs.
Yeah.
And they will sink your ship immediately, and you're going to be stuck with a bunch of debt, a bunch of items that don't move. That's why I say start small, go for the organic growth. I'd say that for any business. And the customization issue, you're just gonna have, that's why I say start small. And I think the way of accessories and then going from there, and I think hijabs. Start with hijabs.
Yeah.
Right? You can provide those are easy to get. You can stack a whole bunch in your living room. Your kids and your husband won't mind because they're small, but you're trying to stack 500 of one color shirt. That's very difficult.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh my God, this is super long. We'll end here. Thank you so much for joining Mr. Shiny Head, Mr. Hair, coming from Paris. Take care and be awesome. Peace.